Continuing from the previous episode 462. Chapter 1391. Returning to the Falling Star Pavilion. The wormhole that was connected to the Falling Star Pavilion was located in the deepest part of the Yan Alliance, protected by an extremely tight defense. Xiao Yan did not make this wormhole known to the public. Although the fees collected from those using the wormhole would be quite a fat sum, Xiao Yan felt that it was better to keep a low profile when it came to such things. Otherwise, it might stir some unnecessary trouble since there was only one wormhole that led to the Central Plains from deep within the northwestern part of the continent. It would cause many to feel jealous if word were to spread. A dark black wormhole was suspended in the air within an incomparably large hall. It was slowly rotating while waves of shocking spatial fluctuations were emitted from the wormhole. Is this a wormhole? The eyes of Kai Lin's group were a little stunned and curious as they observed this wormhole. This was their first time seeing a wormhole. Such a thing was rarely seen in a place like the northwestern region of the continent. Xiao Yan smiled and nodded. Standing beside him was the little fairy doctor, Tianwo Zun Jie, and Qing Lin. Those experts who had been invited had already returned to the Central Plains soon after resolving the trouble from the profound lion sect. Big brother, second brother, we will be leaving. If anything happens in the future, you can send someone to the Falling Star Pavilion. There will be someone there to receive you. Xiao Yan turned his head, looked at Xiao Ding and Xiao Li before he spoke with a smile. The Xiao duo nodded when they heard this information. Understood. Take care. Xiao Yan smiled, but he did not say anything unnecessary. He cupped his hands to everyone present and then took the lead to step into the wormhole. He immediately disappeared. Kai Lin, who was carrying Xiao Xiao, swiftly followed behind him, as did the little fairy doctor's group. Xiao Ding and Xiao Li softly sighed with a sense of loss as they watched Xiao Yan's group disappear within the wormhole. They remained a little longer before leading their people away. The inner hall of the Falling Star Pavilion. This is your daughter? Yao Lao was studying the white-clothed little girl. She was hugging Xiao Yan's thigh and using her large dark black eyes to stare at him. His elderly face was covered with a stunned expression. Xiao Yan involuntarily smiled and nodded when he saw the way Yao Lao acted. He was aware that Yao Lao had been captured by the Hall of Souls when Kai Lin was suspected of being pregnant. Therefore, he was unaware of this situation, so Xiao Yan briefly explained what had occurred back then. How unexpected, how really unexpected. Even with Yao Lao's usual unperturbed temperament, he still involuntarily shook his head after hearing Xiao Yan's story. His eyes swept over Kai Lin as he teased, back then, this wife of yours really hated you. If not for the old me, I'm afraid that you would have been killed by her. Kai Lin's cold face turned a little red when she heard Yao Lao's words. Back then, she had quietly exchanged blows with Yao Lao many times. However, she had not expected the old man from back then, who had appeared only a little stronger than her, to actually be so strong. Xiao Xiao, quickly greet Grand Teacher. Kai Lin gently patted Xiao Xiao's little head and softly told her what to do. Hearing this, Xiao Xiao blinked her large black eyes. She glanced at Xiao Yan somewhat hesitantly. Only after seeing him smile and nod her head, she timidly called out, Grand Teacher. Oh! A joyous smile emitted from Yao Lao's heart surfaced on his face after he heard Xiao Xiao's soft voice. He did not have any children but regarded Xiao Yan as his own son. From his perspective, Xiao Yan's daughter was just like his very own granddaughter. Regardless of how strong an old man at his age was, their hearts would ultimately feel a gentleness for little children. Yao Lao walked forward. The corner of his eyes contained a smile as he touched Xiao Xiao with a face full of love. After which, his shriveled hand squeezed Xiao Xiao's little hand. A joy surfaced in his eyes a moment later as he said, What a powerful spiritual strength. She is also of the fire affinity and her body similarly possesses a trace of wood. It not out of the realm of possibility for her to be an alchemist. Xiao Yan smiled when he heard Yao Lao's exclamation. He had already sensed that Xiao Xiao could be an alchemist with her constitution. Her current abilities were much better than his back then. If she was properly groomed, her future potential would be extraordinary. Her spiritual strength is even stronger than when I discovered you back then. Moreover, her constitution is many times greater than yours. If she is properly groomed, her future achievements will be even greater than yours, her father's. Yao Lao had an excited glint in his eyes. This kind of glint was something that Xiao Yan had seen when he had met Yao Lao for the first time. Xiao Yan smiled when he heard Yao Lao's evaluation. Talent and constitution might be important, but one's future achievements were determined by one's perseverance. The reason that Xiao Yan was able to reach this stage today was not because he had relied on his talent. Instead, he had achieved breakthroughs from lingering between life and death during one bloody battle after another. A true expert did not rely on talent but on great perseverance. Yao Lao's hand continued to pinch Xiao Xiao's bones. His hands used a little more force, causing Xiao Xiao's little mouth to pout. She continued grumble, causing everyone to laugh. Why doesn't the old me teach the little Xiao Xiao in the future? Yao Lao finally lifted his head after pinching her for a long while. His eyes looked at Xiao Yan as he asked without any hesitation. Even he wasn't able to restrain himself when faced with Xiao Xiao, who was like perfect raw jade. Xiao Yan smiled and nodded when he Yao Lao's suggestion. He had brought Xiao Xiao back to the Falling Star Pavilion to be trained by him. No one among those he was acquainted with could surpass Yao Lao's medicinal refinement skills. It was naturally best for him to personally groom Xiao Xiao. Xiao Yan also understood in his heart that Xiao Xiao's talent might be extremely attractive, but her talent wouldn't be enough to cause an expert like Yao Lao to feel anxious. Yao Lao truly regarded Xiao Xiao as his granddaughter and wished she would grow up perfect. This caused Xiao Yan to feel a little moved in his heart. This child has been traveling with you through the wormhole for a couple of days. Let her properly rest first. Yao Lao lovingly patted Xiao Xiao's head and handed her back to Kai Lin with some unwillingness. Subsequently, he instructed someone to help Kai Lin and her daughter settle down. In that case, the both of you should continue chatting. Kai Lin was someone who was mindful of others. She was aware that this teacher and disciple needed to speak about something. Hence, she softly spoke to Xiao Yan before leaving slowly with Xiao Xiao. Yao Lao withdrew his eyes only after seeing Kai Lin take Xiao Xiao away. He smiled and said, "Little fellow, you have helped give birth to a good daughter. However, you being together with Medusa has exceeded my expectation." Xiao Yan spread his hands. The relationship between him and Kai Lin was quite complicated. Who would have imagined that Queen Medusa, who had been chasing Xiao Yan with a murderous intent for many years, would actually become his wife? I have also heard about the matter this time around. Being able to dispatch 2 Tianins is sufficient to show that the Hall of Souls is not fooling around. However, they suffered a great loss this time. The 9th Tianjun was killed on the spot by you, and that 4th Tianjun was beaten half to death before fleeing. Yao Lao fondled his beard and laughed. Honestly speaking, I do not know what the Hall of Souls is planning to do. This clan has always been mysterious and unfathomable. They definitely carrying out a scheme from the way they are gathering souls. Moreover, from the recent increase of soul gathering, this scheme is likely progressing very quickly. Based on the information that I have obtained, it seems that some big wars have erupted in other parts of the continent outside the Central Plains. The Hall of Souls is likely involved in these wars. Yao Lao mused. Oh, wars has erupted across other parts of the continent? Xiao Yan's expression changed upon hearing this. He felt a little uneasy. Just what were these fellows from the Hall of Souls planning? Yao Lao's nodded with a solemn expression. He softly sighed a moment later and changed the topic of conversation. There is still half a month left before the Spatial Trade Fair begins. We should also properly prepare during this period of time. Those who are able to participate in the Spatial Trade Fair are all top experts and powerful factions. The purifying demonic lotus flame is too attractive. Since we have been able to obtain news about it, other factions will also be aware of it. Hence, we will definitely have to pay a great price in order to compete for the final map fragment. Xiao Yan nodded. The purifying demonic lotus flame was ranked 3rd on the heavenly flame ranking. This rank alone indicated its great strength. Its allure was naturally something that need not be mentioned. Even though it was just a map fragment, its value would be quite frightening. It would not be easy to successfully obtain it from the many competitors. Regardless of what happens, we need to obtain the purifying demonic lotus flame. There are 4 map fragments. 3 of them are in your hands. We must obtain the last piece no matter what. Yao Lao remarked. The heavenly flames in the top 3 spots of the heavenly flame ranking possessed an extremely destructive force. These 3 types of heavenly flames were extremely rare in the world. Even after tens of thousands of years or even hundreds of thousands of years, it would be difficult to form another one. It was even rumored that the world did not dare create too many of the top 3 heavenly flames due to them being overly powerful. Only when one of the heavenly flames completely disappeared, would a second flame appear after tens of thousands of years. This divine thing was feared by the spirits of the world. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Continuing from the previous episode 463. Chapter 1392. Spatial Trade Fair. Once Xiao Yan had returned to the Falling Star Pavilion, both he and Yao Lao undertook a retreat at the same time. While the both of them were taking their retreats, pill lightning and other unnatural phenomenons would often appear in the sky above the Falling Star Pavilion. These frequent events caused many Falling Star Pavilion's disciples to watch them in surprise. However, these unusual phenomenons did not damage anything in the star realm. A couple of dark golden figures would quietly charge into the thunderclouds when the pill lightning formed and would absorb all the pill lightning as wave after wave of rumbling sounds echoed. This kind of unusual phenomenon continued for nearly half a month before they gradually slowed. Yao Lao and Xiao Yan slowly walked out of the stone tower on the mountain behind the Falling Star Pavilion half a month later. Their expressions were filled with fatigue. They exchanged glances with each other but did not have the strength to utter any unnecessary words. Both returned to their own rooms and rested for 3 full days. Xiao Yan and Yao Lao only met again at noon on the 3rd day. After 3 days of rest, their auras had completely recovered. "Let's leave." Yao Lao smiled and spoke when he saw Xiao Yan. After counting the time, the Spatial Trade Fair was about to begin. It was time they leave. Xiao Yan nodded. At this moment, only Kai Lin and the little fairy doctor came with him. The Falling Star Pavilion was their stronghold, and Yao Lao was going to leave this time around. Hence, it was better for more people to remain behind to bolster the defenses. I have already arranged the matters of the Falling Star Pavilion appropriately and will hurry back if any accidents occur. Yao Lao stood at the top of a mountain that overlooked this star realm. He smiled and did not remain any longer. His foot stepped through empty air as he swiftly rushed to the exit of the star realm. "Let's leave too." Xiao Yan turned his head and urged Kai Lin and the little fairy doctor after seeing Yao Lao leave. The little fairy doctor gently nodded as the 3 of them swiftly followed Yao Lao. The Spatial Trade Fair was an unfamiliar term within the Central Plains. Only the top factions and experts across the continent were aware about information related to the Spatial Trade Fair. When this so-called Spatial Trade Fair began, there was no specific organizer, but everything ultimately required some rules to keep people in line. As the Spatial Trade Fair gradually expanded, a suitable organizer finally appeared. However, this organizer was not a single expert or faction. Instead, order was maintained by 3 sects with names that were not very well known. The 3 sects were the Groundline Gate, Mysterious Space Sect, and Reflecting Treasure Mountain. These 3 sects' names were not as renowned as the 4 pavilions. However, in terms of strength, even factions like the Burning Flame Valley and the Profound Sky Sect would not underestimate them. There were many hidden powers within the Central Plains. The so-called 1 Hall 1 Tower, 2 sects 3 valleys, 4 pavilions could not be the strongest factions within the Central Plains. Some factions kept an extremely low profile, but they also possessed an extremely solid foundation and strength. Moreover, the strength of these factions did not lose to any well-known faction, but these factions did not expose themselves to the eyes of the ordinary people due to their style. These 3 factions were quite trustworthy in the eyes of the experts from the Central Plains. After having dealt with them a countless number of times, they were selected as the organizers by many sharp-eyed experts. Thus, no accidents would occur at the event. The Spatial Trade Fair had become bigger and more grand while being jointly managed by the 3 factions. Many reclusive experts would be attracted by the ultimate treasures that were trades. This fair could be considered the most lucrative trading ground across the entire Do-Chi continent. Even TN-class Do skills were not extremely rare at this Spatial Trade Fair. Of course, if one wished to obtain such a skill, one needed to take out something that would satisfy the other party. One should not think of trying to rob at this event. Otherwise, one would suffer the combined attack of the 3 large organizing sects and would be viewed with enmity by the other experts because anyone who wanted to participate in this Spatial Trade Fair needed to swear that they would attack anyone who caused trouble during the event. Most of the genuine experts still kept the words that they had sworn. Although something like this occurred during some past events, those who wanted to forcefully snatch someone else's item would not have a good ending. It was due to all these rules that the Spatial Trade Fair had grown. The number of top experts it attracted also increased. The location of the Spatial Trade Fair was held in a barren desert in the southern part of the Central Plains. Sand and wind normally blew over this place, causing it to be without people. Moreover, this was a poor area and there would seldom be any faction trying to profit from it. Hence, this desert was a barren wasteland. An ordinary person would never be able to imagine that this place, where even a wild beast would not wish to go, was the best trading area within the Central Plains. Swoosh! The rushing sound of wind suddenly appeared in the clear sky outside of the desert, and 4 blurry figures flashed down. The next moment, they appeared on the edge of the desert. Is it here? Xiao Yan lifted his head and looked at the desert where yellow sand raged. He asked his question in surprise. "Aye." Yao Lao smiled and nodded. His eyes slowly swept around him as he faintly laughed. This place might appear completely deserted, but if you sense carefully, you can tell that there are quite a number of powerful auras inside. Xiao Yan lifted his brows when he heard Yao Lao's words. His heart shook as his spiritual perception spread out in all directions. Surprise swiftly surged onto his face. He had briefly swept his spiritual perception around and had discovered over 100 auras in this desert. The weakest of these auras was at the 3-star Do Zun class, while the strongest one vaguely emitted a unique fluctuation. Xiao Yan had sensed such a ripple from Yao Lao many times before. It was a mysterious fluctuation that only an elite Do Sheng possessed. Although this ripple was extremely faint, it also meant that the owner of the aura had at least reached the 8-change peak of the 9th star of the Do Zun class. Otherwise, it would be impossible to create such a fluctuation. It is indeed worthy of being the highest grade trade fair within the Central Plains. It has attracted so many experts. Xiao Yan softly praised. These were only the auras he could sense. His heart was aware that there were some auras he could not detect. The owners of these auras would likely have a saint in their name. Haha, this is only a small portion. After entering it, you will realize that it truly lives up to its reputation of being high-end. Yao Lao fondled his beard and laughed. He immediately added somewhat seriously, all of you should behave once we enter. There are many experts inside. Some of the hidden sects might not be well known, but their sect might contain an old demon like Do Sheng existence. Hence, it is best to avoid offending them if we can. Xiao Yan's group nodded when they heard Yao Lao warn them. The current Falling Star Pavilion might be rapidly developing, but this was because it was relying on Yao Lao's alchemist status and his Ban Sheng strength. Otherwise, the Falling Star Pavilion was merely a faction that was similar to the Wind Lightning Pavilion. One might not be able to say that one could find a large number of similar factions in the Central Plains, but there were definitely quite a few of them. Of course, if others come provoking us, we must naturally not be softies. Yao Lao faintly smiled as he spoke. The Ban Sheng class might not be unmatchable, but he still had another status. He was a well-known alchemist in the Central Plains. In the face of this title, even those true elite Do Sheng would not act arrogant when meeting him. Let's go. Yao Lao did not say anything else after his words sounded. With a wave of his hand, his body stepped through empty air as he rushed toward the deepest part of the desert. The yellow sandstorm that blew along the way automatically disappeared when it was around 100 meters from his body. Xiao Yan and the other two followed close behind. This sandstorm that an ordinary person was extremely terrified of did not pose any obstruction to them. Hence, Xiao Yan's group had reached the deepest part of the desert 10 minutes later. They followed Yao Lao and ascended a very steep mountain of sand. Their eyes swept over the other side of the sand mountain when they reached the top. A shock surged onto their faces. One could see a 1,000-foot large black hole slowly rotating at the top of the towering sand mountain, which was located in the middle of the desert. Waves of suction forces slowly spread from it. At this moment, a couple of people with extremely powerful auras flashed down from the surrounding sand mountains. They charged into the wormhole and disappeared. This is the entrance of the Spatial Trade Fair, huh? Its own realm has been created for it. How grand! Xiao Yan softly sighed and muttered to himself as he studied this scene. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Continuing from the previous episode 464. Chapter 1393. 8-Colored Origin Stone. Yao Lao smiled upon seeing the stunned expressions of Xiao Yan's trio. He waved his hand and said, "Let's enter." Xiao Yan and the other two nodded when they heard Yao Lao's suggestion. Their bodies moved, and they rushed toward the towering sand mountain. They had appeared in front of the spatial black hole within a couple of flashes. There were occasionally some figures rushing by when the four of them arrived. Their eyes paused on Xiao Yan's group before taking a second glance at Kai Lin and the little fairy doctor. Those who could come to this place were no fools. They were clearly aware of the type of people who would come. Hence, rarely would any foolish people purposefully step forward and find trouble. Yao Lao ignored these gazes. He stepped through empty air and walked into the spatial black hole. Xiao Yan's group followed close behind. The three of them felt an unusual strength sweeping over them when they entered the spatial black hole. There was no ill intention to this force. Instead, it seemed like it was probing. Everything turned momentarily black in front of Xiao Yan's group after they entered the black hole. Soon after, light and noise began to appear. They blinked their eyes. The world in front of them had changed into a small town. When one's eyes glanced toward the sky of the small town, one would find that it was completely gray. There was a wild and violent spatial ripple vaguely being emitted. This is Spacetown, the location where the spatial trade fair is held. Although this place is not as spacious as the GU realm, it is large enough to be used as a trading location. Yao Lao looked at the busy streets and laughed. Xiao Yan and the other two nodded. Being able to create a realm as a trading location was quite a grand thing to do. Although this realm was not large, it was not something that an ordinary person could create. Let's randomly roam first. There are no inferior products here. All of them are rare items. Yao Lao laughed. After which, he took a step and walked toward a street. Xiao Yan's group followed behind him with curious faces. Their eyes continued to sweep around them. Green stone platforms filled both sides of the street. Things like scrolls, jade bottles, weapons, and monster core had been placed on them. A faint light was being emitted from these objects, indicating that they were not ordinary things. Some human figures were seated behind the stone platforms, and all of these people boasted strong auras. Clearly, they were not people that one could easily offend. Earth Demon Kick, D-Class High-Grade Do Skill. Great Mysterious Skill, D-Class High-Grade Chi Method. Body Transformation Pill, Tier 7 High-Grade Medicinal Pill. 10,000-year-old Bloody Spiritual Ginseng. Various dazzling items continued to enter Xiao Yan's sight while his eyes continued to leap around. The rarity of some of the things caused an excitement to rise within Xiao Yan's heart despite his calmness. The pretty eyes of Kai Lin and the little fairy doctor by the side also revealed an unusual glitter. Earth Core Spirit Serum. The medicinal pill refined by it can attract a 6-colored pill lightning. Xiao Yan's eyes swept over the medicinal ingredients that were emitting a shocking energy. He softly inhaled a mouthful of cold air. It was unexpected that such a thing was also present in this place. The street was not long, only a couple of 100 meters. When Xiao Yan discovered that they had reached the end, he finally withdrew his eyes while feeling not fully satisfied. His face was stunned. Just this street alone had over 10 things that he was interested in. Although Xiao Yan was interested in them, they were of little use to him. Hence, after some brief inquiries, Xiao Yan decided to give up exchanging for them. The value of the things that these old cunning fellows wanted to exchange for was not the least bit inferior to the things they were selling. Xiao Yan softly sighed in a somewhat regretful manner. He had just pulled Kai Lin to a deeper part of the town when he discovered that she had suddenly stilled. He quickly became startled. He looked in the direction that she was staring. There was a 7-colored stone there. This stone was around the size of half a fist. There were 7 extremely clear lines on it, and a special energy was vaguely radiating from it. 7-Colored Origin Stone? Xiao Yan's brows slightly twitched. He quietly came to a sudden understanding when he recognized this thing. This so-called 7-Colored Origin Stone was a mutated spiritual stone. It possessed a unique relationship with the 7-colored heaven-swallowing python. It was rumored that a 7-colored origin stone would hardly ever appear at the spot where a 7-colored heaven-swallowing python died. A 7-colored origin stone had absorbed the blood of a heaven-swallowing python to create a unique energy. This energy served as nourishment to a 7-colored heaven-swallowing python. No wonder Kai Lin would stop because of it. Xiao Yan slowly stepped forward. His eyes drifted to the back of the stone platform. A shriveled old man was sitting weakly at that spot. He did not greet Xiao Yan's group, which had stopped in front of the stone platform. "This elderly sir, may I know what you want in exchange for this 7-colored origin stone?" Xiao Yan did not mind the old man's attitude as he faintly smiled and asked. That skinny old man finally lifted his eyes after hearing Xiao Yan's words. He slowly said, 2 Tier 8 medicinal pills with at least 3 colored pill lightning. It seems a little expensive, no? Xiao Yan's hand rubbed the 7-colored origin stone. This thing might be rare, but it was not that rare. More importantly, its value was limited. It was only useful to a 7-colored heaven-swallowing python. It was pointless for anyone else to obtain it. Hence, its value was not equivalent to 2 Tier 8 medicinal pills with 3 or more colors of pill lightning. Yao Lao crossed his hands and stood by the side. He did not interrupt. All he did was smiled as he watched Xiao Yan bargain with that skinny old man. "Don't exchange for it if you think it is expensive." That skinny old man was full of character as he rolled his eyes. His tone did not treat Xiao Yan as a customer. Xiao Yan could only roll his eyes, but he did not reach the stage where he was about to erupt in anger. If he did not even have this patience, he would not have been able to endure those bitter trainings. While Xiao Yan planned to continue bargaining with the other party, Kai Lin by the side suddenly grabbed Xiao Yan's hand. Her somewhat cold but delicate finger gently wrote a word on Xiao Yan's palm. "Buy." Xiao Yan was slightly startled by Kai Lin. He understood that Kai Lin was not a foolish woman. Moreover, a 7-colored origin stone might be rare, but it was not something that she must have at all costs, yet she continued to insist. She had even secretly passed such a message to Xiao Yan. In which case, it was worth deliberating about this matter. Although Xiao Yan had received Kai Lin's message, he did not immediately change his words. He continued to bargain with that skinny old man. Once Xiao Yan became a little irritated, he threw a jade bottle over and grabbed the 7-colored origin stone before turning around with Kai Lin to leave. That skinny old man was startled when he saw Xiao Yan's agile trade. He grabbed the jade bottle in front of him and checked its content, feeling a little stunned. A moment later, he frowned and looked at the backs of Xiao Yan's group, which were disappearing in the distance. He felt that something was amiss in his heart without understanding why. Damn it, has the old me identified it wrong? But that is obviously a 7-colored origin stone. What is with that fellow? The skinny old man muttered doubtfully. However, there was no one there to unravel his doubt. After grabbing the 7-colored origin stone, Xiao Yan's group quickly disappeared from the old man's sight. Only after taking a turn did Xiao Yan halt. He handed the 7-colored origin stone to Kai Lin and asked, "Is there something wrong with this stone?" Yao Lao and the little fairy doctor by the side were surprised as they waited for Kai Lin to explain. They quickly examined the 7-colored origin stone but were unable to detect a difference. "Oh!" Kai Lin received the 7-colored origin stone. A smile surfaced on her cold face as she said, "An ordinary person only knows that the place where a 7-colored heaven-swallowing python died has a chance of forming a 7-colored origin stone. However, they are unaware that if 100 or more 7-colored heaven-swallowing python die in the same spot, there is a chance an 8-colored or even 9-colored origin stone will form, but it is basically impossible for 100 7-colored heaven-swallowing python to die at the same spot. Hence, an ordinary person is only aware of the 7-colored origin stone, not the 8 or 9 color stones. The true peak of the 7-colored heaven-swallowing python is not known by this name. Instead, it is called the 9-colored heaven-swallowing python, but only those heaven-swallowing python ancestors with the richest bloodline will be able to reach that level. This is a memory that is inherited from the bloodline of the heaven-swallowing python. An ordinary person, even people like you, do not know this." Upon hearing these words, not only was Xiao Yan surprised, even Yao Lao was a little stunned. Clearly, they had never heard of this secret. No wonder only you can recognize it. Xiao Yan bitterly smiled and shook his head. He curiously asked, "In that case, is this origin stone 8 or 9 colors?" Kai Lin's fingernail cut her finger. A drop of blood landed on the origin stone. One could see a slowly wiggling line appear behind the 7th line on the smooth surface of the rock. In order to see just how many colors this origin stone has, one must use the blood of a 7-colored heaven-swallowing python. 8-colored origin stone. Xiao Yan felt a little pity when he saw this. If this was a 9-colored origin stone, Kai Lin would have gained a lot this time around. Of course, he was aware that this was his own greed. 8 colors was already not bad. If it was used properly, it would significantly increase Kai Lin's strength. The 8-colored stone might be different than the 7-colored stone by a color, but the energy that was contained in them was vastly different. If that old fellow was aware of this, it is likely that he would spit out a mouthful of blood. Yao Lao smiled. It was unexpected that they would find such a gain after having just arrived at the Spatial Trade Fair. Let's go. I will bring all of you to see a true treasure. The thing that we need is also there. Yao Lao waved his hand. After which, he turned his body and walked to one side of the street. Xiao Yan and the little fairy doctor quickly followed. Finally, Kai Lin rubbed the 8-colored origin stone in her hand before she put it into her storage ring. She did not discover the extremely tiny line that quietly appeared behind the 8th line when she put the origin stone. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Continuing from the previous episode 465. Chapter 1394. Ancient Hall Spacetown was not very large. It was only comprised of a couple of intersecting ancient streets, and there were many people in this small town. Moreover, all of them were extremely powerful individuals. They were all top-tier experts in the outside world while they were simply common and ordinary here. Xiao Yan and the 2 others followed Yao Lao as they wandered across a couple of ancient streets. They did not stop along the way because of the dazzling items on both sides. They hurried to their destination before finally stopping at the end of a street. Their destination was on the edge of Spacetown. The surroundings had become quite empty, and it was no longer as noisy as before. An ancient building stood at this spot as an extremely old feeling spread from it. It was as though it had been standing there forever, causing one to be afraid of sliding it. There were 2 expressionless old men in gray robes standing outside of the building. The 2 of them stood without moving, appearing just like statues. However, there was still a powerful Do-Chi fluctuation vaguely spreading around their bodies, causing one's heart to feel awed. Just these 2 door guards alone had reached the level of 6-star Do-Zuns. An expert of such a level would be treated as a VIP even in the Profound Sky Sect or the current Falling Star Pavilion. From this, one could tell the high standards of this spatial trade fair. This ancient treasure pavilion is not a place that anyone can just enter. One must obtain an invitation from the 3 great sects in order to enter. Obtaining this invitation is not as easy as one might imagine. Yao Lao smiled. Unless one was an expert or faction that was worthy of being trusted by the 3 great sects organizing the spatial trade fair, one would not be able to obtain this invitation. Yao Lao could be considered an old patron. Naturally, it was not too difficult for him to obtain an invitation. Xiao Yan's trio nodded slightly. Not just anyone could come here. Yao Lao walked toward the door after his words sounded. He flicked his finger and a red glow shot out of his sleeve and headed toward the 2 old men. One of the old men grabbed it, and the red glow turned into a bright red invitation card. Welcome. The expressionless old men revealed a change when they received the red light. Their turbid eyes glanced at Yao Lao's group before bowing. One of them waved his sleeve and 4 black lights shot toward Xiao Yan's group. After which, the light remained suspended in front of them. The lights were surprisingly dark black dupengs. Most who enter this place hide their identities. After all, one does not display one's wealth. These dupengs are specially made by the 3 great sect. It can prevent others from probing. Yao Lao smiled as he explained. He immediately put on the dupeng, which hid his entire body. Xiao Yan's group also put them on. Let's go. Yao Lao smiled. After which, he led the way into the pavilion that was filled with an ancient aura. Xiao Yan's group followed close behind. Xiao Yan's eyes swept around when their footsteps entered this ancient pavilion. The building was dimly lit and appeared ordinary. There was nothing special to it, nor was there any feeling of treasure. 4 guests, please follow me. A gray-robed old man quickly walked over while Xiao Yan was observing his surroundings. He softly informed them before walking to the deepest part of the dim building. Yao Lao did not say anything as he followed. He was very familiar with his surroundings. The trio behind him quickly followed. The group walked through some corridors of the building for a couple of minutes. Finally, they stopped in front of a large bronze door. That old man also paused his footsteps and cupped his hands to Yao Lao. He did not say anything unnecessary as he quietly left. This is our destination. Yao Lao softly stated, after which, he slowly pushed open the ancient bronze door. A faint light shot out from within, but Yao Lao did not dodge it. Instead, he took a step and walked in. Xiao Yan's trio followed him through the bronze door. Xiao Yan's eyes were narrowed, and after the intense light disappeared, an ancient hall that was half the size of a stadium appeared in front of their eyes. The interior of the ancient hall was filled with many stone chairs. At this moment, many figures were already seated, and these people's faces were also hidden by a black dupang like Xiao Yan's group. No one could tell the other party's identity. The entrance of Xiao Yan's group attracted some scanning eyes, but these eyes quickly shifted away. Xiao Yan still sensed some eyes secretly scanning over them. It seemed that they were planning to discover their identities through an opening. Yao Lao did not respond to these inquisitive gazes. He walked to a slightly more deserted spot and sat in a chair. He waved his sleeve and the surrounding space became distorted. There are many experts present. We must be careful. Otherwise, our conversations can be discovered by them. Yao Lao faintly explained. Xiao Yan nodded when he heard this. His eyes swept around him. He discovered quite a number of spatial traces in some other spots. Clearly, the others present were quite cautious. Let's quietly wait first. The transactions in this place will likely begin very soon. Yao Lao softly spoke before becoming quiet. Xiao Yan could sense that Yao Lao seemed to be slowly scanning the hall at this moment. It seemed that he wanted to discover these people's backgrounds. Xiao Yan was naturally unable to help Yao Lao much when it came to such probing. With his 8th star Do Zun strength, he might be considered extremely strong in the outside world, but there was at least 10 people in this room that could surpass him. Plus he was naturally too lazy to scan the room. Otherwise, he might end up attracting some unnecessary trouble. While Yao Lao probed, the rest remained silent as 2 hours quietly passed. Some figures wearing black dupangs entered the hall during these 2 hours. A rough glance revealed that there were over 100 people present. Who? Yao Lao by the side softly sighed while Xiao Yan was waiting with boredom. Only then did Xiao Yan turn his head and softly inquire, "Have you managed to find anything?" "Ha ha, there have been some gains. It seems that some familiar people have come." Yao Lao smiled, but he did not reveal who these familiar people were, so Xiao Yan could only helplessly shake his head. Clang! A clear gong sound suddenly appeared in this quiet ancient hall while Xiao Yan was feeling helpless, and a white-haired, white-bearded old man, who looked like a dying man, slowly appeared in front of everyone's eyes from distorted space. Xiao Yan knit his brows under the dupang when he discovered the white-haired old man. Based on his senses, this half-dead old man was quite frightening. The strange fluctuation that only an elite Do Sheng possessed vaguely appeared around him. 9 change peak Do Zun, huh? Xiao Yan muttered to himself. This white-haired old man likely had half a foot in the Ban Sheng class. If the Do Qi within his body were suppressed once more, it would undergo a transformation that would allow him to advance to a Ban Sheng. This is the mountain chief of the Reflecting Treasure Mountain, Old Man Bao Shan. He has seen an unimaginable number of treasures in his lifetime and has extremely sharp eyes. When I first met him back then, he was already a renowned expert across the Central Plains. The current him has already become a 9 change peak Do Zun. He is only a short distance from a Ban Sheng. Yao Lao's soft voice was transmitted into the ears of Xiao Yan's trio. 9 change peak Do Zun. Kai Lin and the little fairy doctor revealed grave expressions on their faces when they heard these words, especially Kai Lin. Her heart was a little shaken. The Central Plains were indeed worthy of being the area with the highest standard in the Do Qi continent. If such an expert came to the northwestern part of the continent, that expert would definitely be at the top, but he had appeared to host the trade fair. Of course, this was not an ordinary trade fair. Haha, it is another spatial trade fair. How is everyone doing? That old man Bao Shan swept his eyes over the large hall. His elderly voice echoed beside everyone's ears, but no one present responded to his greeting. The atmosphere of the hall was still strangely quiet. Old man Bao Shan was also unconcerned with this response. It was not the first time he had experienced this. He waved his sleeve and the space around him slowly became distorted. It seemed like a spatial prison had surrounded old man Bao Shan. The old rules still apply. Everyone should not mind it too much. Old man Bao Shan smiled after doing this. After which, he stood on the auction stage in front, let out a cough, and said, "Almost everyone is here." In that case, I shall not say anything unnecessary. Let's begin this trade fair. After the final sentence of Old Man Bao Shan sounded, all the gazes within the large hall immediately gathered on him. There was some anticipation and excitement vaguely present. Everyone knew that the things offered at this trade fair were not ordinary. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Continuing from the previous episode 466. Chapter 1395. The Last Map Fragment. Next, we will begin auctioning the first object of this spatial trade fair. Old Man Bao Shan's hand rubbed the empty space in front of him from within his distorted spatial wall. A pair of dense white bone wings appeared in front of everyone's eyes. The faint sound of wind lightning was emitted from the ancient wings. Demon Phoenix wings? Xiao Yan was startled when he saw this pair of familiar bone wings. His expression immediately became a little strange. He had always heard that the Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe greatly valued the corpses and bloodline of their tribe members. Anyone who dared to take a corpse would be surrounded and attacked by the Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe. Hence, he had always been afraid about revealing the Heaven Phoenix wings on him. Unexpectedly, the first item to be sold in this spatial trade fair were these wings. Looks like the Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe has met with many sneak attacks, but it is expected. The Heaven Demon Phoenix's body is full of treasures. It is not strange for someone to target them. Xiao Yan gloated within his heart. He was also clearly aware that the only auction hall that dared to deal with the Demon Phoenix wings was only this spatial trade fair. Demon Phoenix wings, the wings of a Heaven Demon Phoenix. Everyone present should be aware of how rare they are. If they are refined into a flying doe skill, no one of the same level would be able to catch up to you in terms of speed. It is a must-have to kill others or flee. Old Man Bao Shan smiled as he spoke. His words clearly indicated that he was not afraid of offending the Heaven Demon Phoenix. The owner of these Demon Phoenix wings wishes to exchange them for a Tier 8 medicinal pill that has experienced a 4-colored pill lightning. After our evaluation, the Demon Phoenix wings are worth this much. Hence, anyone who is interested can begin bidding. The large hall once again descended into silence after Old Man Bao Shan's words sounded. Xiao Yan crossed his hands in front of his chest. He leaned his body against the backrest and watched everyone with great interest. He was already in possession of a pair of Demon Phoenix wings and naturally understood the benefits. By relying on them, Xiao Yan had escaped from the hands of people far stronger than him many times. However, since Xiao Yan already possessed them, he would not place his attention on them. The large hall was completely silent. No one spoke, but Old Man Bao Shan was not anxious. His face was still full of smiles. This silence continued for around 5 minutes before a hoarse voice finally said, "I want it." Xiao Yan's eyes looked in the direction of where the voice had originated. He saw a human figure in a dupang randomly toss a jade bottle toward Old Man Bao Shan. Old Man Bao Shan received the jade bottle. He opened it and took a glance before smiling. His eyes looked around him and asked, "Is there anyone willing to offer a higher price than this?" The surroundings were completely silent. This did not surprise Old Man Bao Shan. The original owner of these Demon Phoenix wings was a 6-star Do Zun. It was not bad that it could be exchanged for a 4-color pill lightning Tier 8 medicinal pill. No one would compete for it with a higher price since it was not worth it. Old Man Bao Shan smiled when he saw no one open their mouths. With a flick of his finger, the Demon Phoenix wings in front of him flew to the person who had offered the bid. The bidder grabbed the wings and stuffed them into his storage ring. This transaction was very simple. Both parties would exchange goods at the same time since the things they were exchanging for were all extremely expensive. This place is different than an ordinary auction. Unless there is a special reason, most people will choose to give up when the things that they fork out far surpass the things that they wish to buy. After all, the people here are not some suckers. Yao Lao softly explained. Xiao Yan nodded. It was likely that one could find dozens of people here who could take out something that surpassed a 4-colored pill lightning Tier 8 medicinal pill. However, only one person had offered the bid earlier. It was partially because the allure of this Demon Phoenix wings was insufficient, but it also indicated the calmness of these people. Ha ha! The second item that we will be auctioning today. Old Man Bao Shan smiled after having successfully completed the first transaction. Another object once again flashed and appeared in front of him. Surprisingly, it was a pale golden scroll. King Kong glass body, Tien Class Low-Level Do Skill. This Do skill was created by Saint Lu Li 1,000 years ago. If one practices this Do skill to its peak, one's body would appear as indestructible as metal, one's punch could collapse the sky, and one's feet could crack the ground. It is a kind of powerful Do skill that combines both offense and defense together. Surprise flashed across Xiao Yan's eyes when he heard Old Man Bao Shan's introduction. This King Kong glass body seemed to be a method to train one's physical body. It was likely quite powerful in order to reach the Tien class. This Do skill's owner wishes to exchange it for a Tien class low-level water affinity Qi method. Of course, it is also alright if one takes out some medicinal pills of equal value. Old Man Bao Shan smiled as he spoke. Quite a number of people present in this large hall were quite interested in this Do skill. Hence, someone threw out a pale blue scroll after Old Man Bao Shan spoke. The scroll finally landed in Old Man Bao Shan's hands. Old Man Bao Shan received the scroll. He opened it and took a glance. After which, he lifted his head and looked around him. Before he could speak, another 2 people threw scrolls at him. Within less than 2 minutes, 4 scrolls had appeared in Old Man Bao Shan's hands. There were 4 people who were interested in this King Kong glass body. Xiao Yan involuntarily sighed in his heart as he looked at the scroll in Old Man Bao Shan's hands. The 4 scrolls were Tien class low-grade Qi methods. It had been only a short while, but many Tien class Qi methods, which were extremely rare in the outside world, had appeared. This scene caused even Xiao Yan to involuntarily sigh in his heart. It was indeed the case that one came into contact with different things at a certain level. Back then, he had fought a life-and-death battle before he luckily managed to obtain a Tien class low-level Do skill. No one else joined the bid after 4 scrolls were thrown out. Old Man Bao Shan opened each of the 4 scrolls and carefully read through them. A moment later, he slowly shut his eyes. They were once again opened a minute later. He flicked his finger and 3 of the scrolls in his hand shot back to their owners. He laughed. After the owner of the Do skill looked the offers over, a conclusion has been reached for this transaction. His sleeve was flicked as he spoke. The golden-colored Do Qi scroll in front of him flew to the back of the hall. Subsequently, it landed in the hands of a black-robed person. This scroll was put in that person's storage ring in the blink of an eye. HMPH. The 3 others let out a soft, displeased snort when the Qi methods they offered were not selected. Clearly, they were in a bad mood. Old Man Bao Shan acted as though he did not hear these voices. He continued to conduct the trade fair. The items that appeared during the subsequent trades became more dazzling. From Do skills to Qi methods, from medicinal pills to great natural treasures, from weapons to medicinal cauldrons. Each item that was taken out would stir quite a commotion in the outside world, but they were not shocking here. Although these auctioned objects were rare, Xiao Yan did not bid for them. He did not bid for anything other than a poison book called Sky Quiet Poison Code. He had used 2 5-colored pill lightning tier 8 medicinal pills to purchase the book for the little fairy doctor. One reason why he did not bid for more items was because the items that the other party requested were quite harsh. Another reason was that he did not need these objects in his heart. The so-called Sky Quiet Poison Code had been created by an elite Do Sheng called Saint Sky Quiet Poison thousands of years ago. This elite Do Sheng loved to use poison throughout his life. Hence, he had left behind a scroll containing the refinement methods of various mysterious poisons. Some of the lethal poisons could cause even an elite Do Zun to become miserable. Although this book possessed a great might, it required one to have researched poisons before and was rather unorthodox. Otherwise, it would not have been possible for Xiao Yan to purchase it so easily. Although Xiao Yan did not purchase anything for himself, the perplexing objects being auctioned opened Xiao Yan's eyes. Only at this moment did he understand why so many top experts rushed to this spatial trade fair. The things that were being traded here were extremely rare. As one rare object after another was successfully exchanged, the atmosphere in the large hall became much hotter. Heated eyes shot out from many dupengs. They stared intently at Old Man Bao Shan in the middle of the hall. However, the thing that caused Xiao Yan to frown was that the map fragment related to the purifying demon lotus flame had yet to appear. Next, we will begin auctioning the second-to-last item of this trade fair. Old Man Bao Shan, who had just successfully traded an item at a high price, lifted his head and displayed an extremely happy face. He smiled and clenched his hand, and a yellowish ancient skin appeared in his hand. Xiao Yan, who was feeling a little impatient in his heart, suddenly lifted his head when this ancient skin appeared. He stared at the ancient map fragment while his breathing within the dupeng had become much rougher and heavier. This map was something he was very familiar with because Xiao Yan had been searching for them for over a decade. Haha, this is only a map fragment. There is no special energy to it. However, after studying it, we have come to the conclusion that this map fragment is related to the legendary purifying demon Lotus Flame. Old man Bao Shan lifted the old skin with his hand. All the eyes within the large hall gathered on the ancient map fragment after old man Bao Shan's words rang out. The purifying demon Lotus Flame was ranked third on the heavenly flame ranking. This kind of heavenly flame, which seemed to exist only in legends, was something that even someone like Yao Lao had never personally seen. Everyone present was clearly aware of the strength of the top 3 heavenly flames. They were a true force that could destroy the world and were already beyond the control of humans. Anyone who could obtain and control this heavenly flame would find very few opponents within the Do Chi continent. This was because this heavenly flame represented an extreme destructive force. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible.